Through 7 games of 2025, Trevor Lawrence's season encapsulates structural dysfunction rather than individual decline. His metrics, minus 0.09 EPA/dropback, minus 6.9% CPOE, 6.3 YPA, reflect an offense trapped between philosophical intentions and execution rhythm. Jacksonville's play design fails to synchronize protection, route depth, and timing, leaving Lawrence oscillating between holding the ball, 2.78 TTT, for intermediate patterns and rushing hurried throws when structure breaks. Protection has been average, but once muddied, the timing of the entire offense collapses. Conceptually, Jacksonville's core offensive stabilizers, play action and screens, have inverted into liabilities. Both produce negative EPA, meaning the Jaguars' safe sequencing kills drives, while the pure dropback game plus 0.08 EPA per DB remains the only efficiency channel. The intermediate layer, 10 to 19 yards, is Lawrence's sweet spot plus 0.25 EPA/DB, 75.9 grade. While short and behind line throws bleed value because of compressed spacing and minimal YAC. He thrives on rhythm-time crossers and seams, but is boxed in by schematic overemphasis on horizontal control. Directional and situational trends confirm rhythm dependence. Lawrence is sharp left and middle but inefficient to the right, where delayed footwork and rotation lag hurt accuracy. He excels versus Blitz plus 0.19 EPA per DB because pressure simplifies reads, yet struggles versus standard rush minus 0.17 EPA per DB, underscoring a design flaw rather than a mental one. When kept clean, his efficiency is modestly positive. Under pressure, both EPA and completion rate crater, reflecting lateral drift mechanics and inconsistent pocket climbing. The structural takeaway, Jacksonville's offense is fundamentally misaligned with its quarterback's strengths. Lawrence remains effective when operating in rhythm, particularly on intermediate timing routes within a 2.8 to 3.0 second release band. To restore stability, Doug Peterson's unit must modernize slot usage, choice routes, motion, pair back screens, and rebuild play action around horizontal displacement rather than depth. With interior slide protections and rebalanced target distribution, Lawrence's precision-driven intermediate profile can reemerge as a consistent efficiency engine. Until then, his 2025 output represents a capable passer constrained by systemic inefficiency rather than declining skill. Through 7 games of the 2025 season, Trevor Lawrence's performance reflects an offense suffering from structural dissonance and rhythmic instability rather than raw execution failure. Across both PFF and next-gen stats data, his composite efficiency sits near break-even, posting a negative 0.09 EPA per dropback, negative 6.9% completion percentage over expected, and a modest 6.3 yards per attempt. His average time to throw of 2.78 seconds sits slightly above league median, suggesting a quarterback who often holds the ball in search of developing intermediate windows rather than operating within the quick game rhythm. The Jaguars' protection structure isn't collapsing outright. Lawrence is pressured on 35.7% of dropbacks, right around league average. But when pockets muddy, the offense's timing collapses. His overall PFF passing grade of 69.9 captures this duality: capable sequencing when clean, but disjointed decision-making once structure deteriorates. Conceptually, Jacksonville's offense has lost its traditional efficiency pillars. Play action, typically a stabilizer in Doug Peterson's structure, has become a net negative. On play action dropbacks, Lawrence averages negative 0.14 EPA per play with a 60.6 passing grade, while non-play action snaps yield nearly identical efficiency, an unusual and troubling parity. Screens are even worse, also producing roughly negative 0.14 EPA per dropback with a PFF grade of just 53.8, implying that Jacksonville's horizontal control game has become predictable and unthreatening. Only when operating without play action or screen mechanics, pure dropback rhythm, does Lawrence's efficiency turn slightly positive plus 0.08 EPA per DB, 71.2 PFF grade. In other words, Jacksonville's safe calls have become drive killers, while its traditional dropback structure remains its only source of sustainable efficiency. Depth and direction splits reveal a sharply polarized passing map. Lawrence's intermediate throws, 10 to 19 yards downfield, are his only profitable layer, generating plus 0.25 EPA per dropback and a strong 75.9 PFF passing grade. Everything else sits underwater. Short throws, 0 to 9 yards, produce negative 0.11 EPA per dB despite a solid plus 6.2% CPOE, signaling compressed spacing and low yards after catch opportunity. Deep attempts, 20-plus yards, yield just a negative 0.05 EPA per dB, as route access is constrained and completions rely on contested wins rather than open windows. Passes behind the line of scrimmage, comprising a significant portion of early down volume, have been outright harmful, negative 0.14 EPA per dB, 66.3 grade. Collectively, the data suggests a quarterback who thrives on rhythm-timed intermediate patterns, digs, crossers, and seams, but is boxed in by scheme structure that overemphasizes short, low-leverage throws. Directionally, Lawrence's production skews toward the middle and left halves of the field. He's most efficient between the numbers on short throws, 26 of 31, 93.7 rating, and to the left intermediate zone, 13 of 20, 111.3 rating. The right side, however, remains a consistent weak point. Both PFF and NGS splits indicate reduced accuracy and lower EPA when Lawrence throws outside right, largely stemming from footwork bias and delayed platform resets. This right drift tendency, visible in film and now quantified in split data, often prevents him from resetting base on time against rotating safeties. Pressure and blitz splits reinforce the notion that Lawrence's efficiency depends on structural rhythm rather than external stress. He's markedly better against the blitz, plus 0.19 EPA per dB, plus 11.9% CPOE, than against standard four-man rushes minus 0.17 EPA per dB, minus 5.4% CPOE. That paradox reveals a scheme-level issue. When forced to play fast, Lawrence's processing accelerates and spacing simplifies, producing clean reads and RPO-style outlets. When defenses sit back in static zone, however, Jacksonville's route spacing and concept sequencing often collapse. Under pressure, his PFF passing grade, 67.6, and EPA/DB, minus 0.11, both crater, illustrating that while his hot red discipline is intact, his pocket escape mechanics are inconsistent, too often drifting laterally rather than climbing. Behind-the-line production further underscores a systemic spacing problem. Lawrence's left side screen and swing concepts are fine, 146.5 rating, positive YPA, but central and right flats produce steep efficiency drops, with EPA down between negative 3.3 and negative 4.0 and passer ratings between 87 and 93. These numbers confirm that the Jaguars' horizontal quick game, built around running back releases and slot bubble extensions, has become overly predictable and rarely creates separation. Slot targets, in particular, have been the single most damaging category across the passing map. Negative 0.38 EPA per dB, 3.0 yards of average separation, highlighting both route density and leverage mismanagement. When kept clean, Lawrence's efficiency rises modestly, plus 0.08 EPA/dB, 73.3 grade. But once pressure arrives, the structure unravels. His completion rate under pressure drops to 48%, and his EPA/dB turns negative despite fairly stable average depth of target. The numbers tell the story of a quarterback who reads and processes quickly, but is limited by an offense that creates too few clean lanes, especially versus non-blitz four-man fronts. This has rendered Jacksonville highly volatile from drive to drive, often competent on scripted sequences, but collapsing once defenses settle into coverage rotation. Ultimately, the integrated picture is of a quarterback capable of positive EPA generation only when he controls timing within a narrow band, roughly 2.8 to 3.0 seconds time to throw, working primarily in the intermediate layer to boundary or seam. Quick game efficiency is disastrously low, negative 0.21 EPA/dB, due to spatial compression, and long developing plays beyond 3.3 seconds at little return. Lawrence's intermediate precision and blitz handling remain high-level traits, but Jacksonville's current structure neutralizes both by forcing heavy volume into backfield and slot zones that repeatedly lose the efficiency battle. From a schematic standpoint, the Jaguars must re-engineer how they build spacing and timing. Slot usage needs modernization through choice routes and variable stems to replace static stick and option calls. The screen game should be reduced drastically and replaced with quick tight end drags or motion-based flats that produce forced coverage shifts. Recentering play action around horizontal displacement rather than vertical depth would help restore timing and give Lawrence layered reads. Additionally, protection adjustments, particularly sliding toward the interior and lightening the load on the right tackle, could prevent the four-man pressure inefficiency that has crushed neutral downs. If Jacksonville can reestablish rhythm in that 2.8 to 3.0 second window, lean heavier into intermediate concepts, digs, crossers, seams, and redistribute targets away from clustered slot alignments, Lawrence's efficiency ceiling remains firmly intact. But until then, his 2025 profile depicts a quarterback executing capably inside a structurally broken system, one that turns efficiency into volatility through design rather than decision.